What would happen if the United States dollar collapsed? This single question has been asked by economists, investors, and governments around the world for decades. Because the US dollar isn't just a currency, it's the backbone of the global financial system. From international trade to oil prices to the way countries store their wealth, almost everything depends on the dollar. So what happens if the most important currency in the world suddenly fails? The short answer, chaos. But the longer answer is much more interesting. To understand the impact of a dollar collapse, we first need to understand why the dollar matters so much in the first place. After World War II, the United States became the dominant global power. At a meeting in 1944 called the Bretton Woods Conference, world leaders decided that most currencies would be tied to the US dollar, and the dollar itself would be backed by gold. Even after the US left the gold standard in 1971, the dollar remained the world's reserve currency. Today, nearly 60% of global foreign reserves are held in US dollars. Almost all major commodities like oil, natural gas, and wheat are priced in dollars. Even international debt is mostly denominated in dollars. In other words, if you want to buy, sell, or borrow in the modern world, you almost always need US dollars. This is why economists call it the exorbitant privilege of America. The US can borrow money more easily, print dollars at will, and run deficits that other countries could never afford. But what exactly does it mean for the dollar to collapse? Currencies don't just vanish overnight. A collapse usually means one of two things. The dollar loses most of its value against other currencies, or people stop trusting it as the global reserve currency. Both scenarios would create massive global instability. But the second scenario, the loss of trust, is the real nightmare, because trust is what keeps money valuable in the first place. If governments, banks, and investors around the world suddenly decided the dollar was no longer safe, the effects would spread faster than any pandemic. So let's imagine the collapse begins. First, financial markets would panic. Stock markets around the world would crash as investors rushed to pull money out of dollar-based assets. US Treasury bonds, the safest investment in the world, would suddenly look toxic. Countries that hold trillions of dollars in reserves, like China, Japan, and Saudi Arabia, would scramble to dump them. At the same time, the American people would feel the shock instantly. Prices in US stores would skyrocket. Imports, from electronics to food, would become unaffordable because nobody would want to sell in a currency that's losing value. Inflation could easily spiral into hyperinflation. Within weeks, the world's largest economy would grind to a halt. But the collapse wouldn't just be an American problem, because the world is deeply interconnected. Countries that rely on the dollar for trade, basically everyone, would struggle. For example, if you're a country like India or Brazil that imports oil, you pay in dollars. If the dollar collapses, your contracts become worthless overnight. Banks would freeze, international trade would stop moving, shipping containers would sit idle in ports because nobody could agree on what to pay or what to accept. Entire economies could collapse simply because the financial plumbing of the world is built around the dollar. So, if the dollar dies, what replaces it? Some people argue the euro could take its place. Others point to the Chinese yuan. And some believe cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin might become the new global standard. But in reality, no other currency is strong enough, trusted enough, or widely used enough to immediately replace the dollar. The Eurozone is politically fragmented. China's economy is powerful, but its financial system is tightly controlled. And cryptocurrencies are simply too volatile to handle trillions in global trade. So in the short term, nobody benefits. Everyone suffers. Over time, though, the world would adapt. New trade alliances might form around regional currencies. Maybe oil would start being priced in a basket of currencies instead of just dollars, or group countries like BRICS may start using trade currency. Or maybe technology would push digital currencies into the mainstream. For the US itself, the pain would be devastating. Living standards would collapse as the country could no longer fund its massive debt. Imports would dry up. Inflation would destroy savings, and America would lose its geopolitical power overnight. Remember, the US military, the world's most powerful, relies on the dollar's dominance to finance itself. Without it, America would be just another country with a very large army it can't afford. So, what happens if the US dollar collapses? The answer is simple. the entire world changes. Global trade would stop. Economies would fall into chaos. And the balance of power that has defined the world since 1945 would vanish almost instantly. Fortunately, a complete collapse of the dollar is unlikely, at least anytime soon. The dollar remains dominant because for now there's simply no better alternative. But if history teaches us anything, it's that no empire, no currency, and no system lasts forever. And if the dollar ever does collapse, it won't just be America that suffers, it will be all of us.